Have you ever been looking at programming as a new career, but you've been on the fence until a professional athlete came and told you should give it a shot? Yeah, me neither. In February, a man by the name of Basil Farag wrote an article on LinkedIn Pulse called Please Don't Learn to Code Unless, in essence, arguing that the idea that learning to code is something that everybody should do is asinine. And these kind of things occur routinely in the technology community as it's nothing more than a propaganda mill at this point. And he cites several different movements, such as the Learn to Code movement, Silicon Valley, politicians, and nonprofit organizations that further this idea notion that everybody, from the minute that they start their academic career, should learn at some point how to write an if then statement. I actually agree with the sentiments of this article quite a bit, and it's given me more than enough ammunition to tear the tech community a new one again. The problem I have with these boot camps as a start is that the majority of these boot camps have no accreditation. In fact, I've yet to find one that has any kind of accreditation. So when you are faced with this reality, it makes applying to ITT Tech sound like a good idea. The other thing that I have an issue with is that the majority of these boot camps, once again, are for profit corporations, which means they have little incentive to tell you the truth at all. I looked at one boot camp in particular, and while I know that this sample is not at all scientific, it still communicates the point I'm trying to make. Where in 2014, May of 2014, if I'm not mistaken, the cost of tuition to attend a 12-week course at this boot camp was $8,000 to $9,000. In 2016, it is now $15,000. There's not a 1920s Third Reich economy that could get that kind of inflation in 2 years, let alone in anything in the US. The other problem I see with this is that as a for profit corporation, I do see many of them posting statistics that show how successful or the probability of success of getting hired within some arbitrary time frame. But largely the problem I see with that is that as a for-profit corporation, what incentive do they have to be honest or to find a way to stick to their guns? Some I have read, or one really, has argued that it does tries to be as fair as it can in terms of determining success. But the problem is that even if you do get to, if even if you do somehow get hired, and if you look at some of these sites, you see kind of the way that they work around their success rate. Even if you do get hired, you better hope that you make a decent salary. The same boot camp that I saw that doubled its tuition costs within 2 years said that the minimum salary that graduates have gotten is $35,000. That's twice of what the current tuition cost is now. So that gets actually that segues perfectly into my next point. If you were to look at these companies' career portals, they paint this picture that being a programmer is fun and hip and everybody can dye their hair blue and get these boxy frame glasses and have a good time on the foosball table. But the reality is that this is a low respect job. One of the things that I remember when looking for programming jobs and as a programmer was this subtle implication that you should be working in your spare time. In fact, there's a Reddit post I recently read where somebody had echoed those same sentiments where they interviewed for a job where they said that the interviewers expected the candidate to work 40 hours at a minimum on their work and also code in their free time on a project that may or may not be theirs, but they still expect them to write code and basically spend all of their lives writing code or every single day, every waking hour writing code. The only problem with that is that if they wanted a robot with no cognitive ability or any ability to have any kind of complex thought, they could have just given Aziz Ansari the job and we would have all been done. The other problem with that is that as a low respect job, you can also imagine that there are some other problems, and bias and discrimination is one of them. While I'm sure we're all tired of the social justice propaganda, there is some merit to the claim that there are fewer people of color or women in these positions. And while it may be voluntary or involuntary, I think there still deserves some exploration of this topic. I looked at one opinion piece that cited a study where, with black and Asian students who had resumes that they submitted, or with resumes from that could have been black or Asian, the people that participated in the study and the observers noted, or the observers specifically noted, that the whitened, that is, the resumes that removed any sense of ethnic background or history, whether it be their name or whatever extracurricular activities they belong to, the minute that they removed any of those ethnic activities or background, the more likely they were to get a response. And so, if this is an industry, and that is from a collective standpoint. So imagine what it's like in industry that already has a bad reputation, having these people apply and not getting a response. So you're applying for a response where you're already discriminated against, you're not respected, and they expect you to basically do your profession around the clock. Then the other problem is, if you've spent any time on YouTube or on Twitter or Tumblr, you probably have seen a lot of comment wars and flames over innocuous and petty topics. Well, in the tech industry, it gets even worse. From an industry that expects everybody to love Apple, and in fact, one of those boot camps expected you to purchase an Apple product or a MacBook Pro specifically on top of paying their tuition. You can expect that this kind of technology cockfighting is prevalent throughout this industry, and really, that is no place that anybody should ever want to be in. Then the other problem goes more specifically to the argument that generalists or people who are not in the industry make to why everybody should learn code, and that's because it teaches you how to fix problems, or it makes you more of a problem solver and you can think critically. My problem with that is that if programming is supposed to teach you about solving problems and thinking logically and critically, the real logic, by the way, not the anti-SJW, anti-fem, MRA, I'm afraid to talk to feminists because they might yell at me YouTube logic. They already have something called math. And in fact, if you look at it deeply enough, you'll realize that programming is essentially an extension of mathematics, or it's an application of mathematics. So we already have that in the curriculum. Why don't we just teach math correctly? Lastly, the last thing that I would say here is that if this profession were so glamorous, they wouldn't need to have people advertising and promoting software development as a profession. If it is so highly competitive and everybody wants to do it, then it should speak on its own merit, whatever merit that may be. And you don't need all of these celebrities and all of these campaigns to get people to write code. So, wrapping everything up here because I'm well beyond my limit, programming as an ability can only teach you skills, critical thinking skills among others, within context. But in a profession where having an Xbox, a stocked fridge, and margarita machines are more important than a working bathroom, a real product you can sell, or heaven forbid, actual revenue, the last thing we need are more JavaScript programmers coming in and adding to this mire of misery, and once again having yet another person going to a website looking to raise their score so that they can get more undeserved jobs doing things they don't know how to do. And with that in mind, I hope everybody enjoyed this rant, and I will see you guys again next time.